What's up, guys? All right, so in this video, we're going to be talking about um, using time frames again, okay? Because I still get questions on like when to use M1, M5, M15. So the only time and place that you should ever use those micro time frames, M15, M5, M1, is is when you have clear direction. Like you need everything to stack. Okay. Um, and essentially it's like if you're using an hourly time frame or an H4 time frame, we're buying support and resistance, right? Or QMs. So typically your stop loss is going to be really small anyways. Okay. It's typically going to be under 25 pips. So if you're entering, okay, so let's say for example, you have, where's my text tool? You have M1, M5, M15, and you have a, let's say 15 pip SL on these. Versus you have H1, H4, let's say with a 20 to 25 pip SL. You have to ask yourself, does it make sense to save 10 pips when I'm using higher time frame entry? Because now I have the power of higher time frame stacks instead of trying to micromanage my M1, M5, M15. Because why? Because on these time frames, more roadblocks. Less roadblocks. So depending on your mental capital, which is important when it comes to trading, do you want to sit here on M1, M5, M15 and monitor M5 roadblocks, M15 roadblocks, H1 zones, and then monitoring the H1 zone and then having to drop back down to here? Or would you rather monitor H1, H4? Okay, what makes more sense to you, right? If we have H4s and H1 entries, we're utilizing that higher time frame power because these are in confluence with the higher time frame, right? They control higher time frame. These ones are controlling these, so it doesn't make sense. So the only time that you should really be focused on those lower time frames is when your SL is way too big. Okay, so if we have like an H4 level that has a huge wick, then we can drop that down to an H1. If there's still a huge wick, we can drop that down to M15 and then monitor price action then. Still too big, monitor it at M5 and then monitor price action then. The goal is if we have a daily break, okay, daily break from a weekly zone, okay, and then we have, let's say in this level here, okay, let's say in that level we have H4QM, right? This little movement, this segment right here would be this leg right here, right? Now we have H4QM. Okay, now let's say in this zone, and let me color this. So this area right here, whatever this is, so this is gonna look probably like when price gets here, or this little leg right here, it's gonna look maybe something like that, right? And this, let's just say this is H1. Okay, and let's say you have another QM here, or you have a support resistance zone here, right? Then you can drop down to M15, right? Because let's say the stop loss is too big, Okay, we have, we have weekly zone with daily rejecting, breaking structure. Then inside the daily zone, where we're looking to enter off the resistance, we have a QM on H4. Okay, so already we have 2 time frames stacked. And then on H1, we're obviously breaking structure from this leg. Okay, and then so from H1, we drop down to M15. And let's say we see something in here on M15, which would be like, so as price was coming into it here on this QM, let's say M15 just did something like this. Okay, then we can drop down to those levels because now we know that all the structure is lining. And then on M15, okay, we have this zone here. Okay, and then you would drop down again on M5, and then, you know, each structure is lining up. Everything is breaking, and then we have a collective of time frames. But let's say that this is pretty much the same SL, right? Your SL is still probably going to go above this. So you might as well just enter off the H4QM, right? You might as well, depending on how big the stop loss is. If it's less than 25 pips, then there's no need for these lower time frames. You're just going to confuse yourself. Okay, if we know that daily is breaking structure, then we know it's trying to find what? A weekly level. Okay, if H4 is breaking structure, we understand that it's trying to find a daily level. And if we understand that H4 or H1 is breaking structure, it's trying to find an H4 level. Okay, and then we're monitoring each level to see what? Breakouts. So price may come down to here to the H4 level. And then on H1, it may have a breakout. And then it's just the rinse repeat. Okay, so don't get caught up in these lower time frames unless you need it. Okay, most of the time you're not going to need it. So to get really consistent, like my goal here isn't to get you guys to take a shit ton of trades every day. Okay, that comes way later when you mastered all the time frames. Once all the time frames are mastered, then you can understand M15, M5, M1 structures. But right now, if you don't even know H1, H4, daily, weekly, monthly structures, you're just going to confuse the living fuck out of yourself. Okay, and you're going to see so many roadblocks. You're not going to understand why price is going where. Okay, so until then, until you master it, like bare minimum H1, you got to master H1, right? To even drop down to M15. Once you understand that, then you can go to those M15 levels. But for now, H1, H4 is enough for you to be a consistent trader. Okay, so you shouldn't even be taking trades on H4, H1 unless the stop loss is less than 25 pips. So think about that for a second. You're finding trades on H1 and H4 for entry, okay, with less than 25 pip SLs only. So already you filtered out a lot of shitty trades, right? Because a lot of H4, H1 trades are going to have bigger SLs. But once you find a trade that has less than a 25 pip SL, you've already filtered your risk so much and you're entering off a higher time frame, which you have the power of higher time frame behind your back. Okay, so H1, H4, and more so H4. Okay, but H1 is doable as well.